Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're leaping between dimensions with one of the most visually breathtaking and emotionally ambitious animated films ever made, Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse, the 2023 sequel that somehow surpassed its revolutionary predecessor. Directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, this $100 to $150 million production, reports vary, became a cultural phenomenon, earning over $690 million worldwide and winning the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Starring Shameik Moore, Hailee Steinfeld, Tyree Henry, and an unforgettable turn from Oscar Isaac as Spider-Man 2099, the film expands Miles Morales' world into a multiverse of infinite possibilities and infinite heartbreak. Whether you're here for the groundbreaking animation, the gut-wrenching emotional beats, or just wondering why Spot is the most terrifying villain in Spider-Man history, this video will break down everything. Stick around to the end. What makes Across the Spider-Verse a masterpiece that demands to be seen on the biggest screen possible? Miles Morales is introduced 16 months after the events of Into the Spider-Verse, now struggling to balance his life as Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man with the expectations of his parents, especially his police officer father, who has become obsessed with catching the vigilante Spider-Man. From the first scene, we get a sense of his personality. He's more confident in the suit than out of it, desperate to prove himself while hiding his identity from the people he loves most. The film quickly establishes stakes through its inciting incident. Miles is attacked by the Spot, a former Alchemax scientist who was transformed into a being made entirely of interdimensional portals during the Collider explosion in the first film. The Spot is initially comic relief. "I'm a supervillain now, I'm not a joke." But his power grows exponentially as he learns to travel between dimensions. When Gwen Stacy reappears in Miles's universe, she reveals that the Spot's actions are destabilizing the multiverse, and that a secret society of spider people, led by Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, is tracking him. By the end of this introduction, we already understand the impossible situation. Miles, desperate to prove he belongs, follows Gwen into the Spider Society, only to discover that his very existence as Spider-Man is considered a glitch in the multiverse, and that saving his father from the Spot means destroying reality itself. The relationships in Across the Spider-Verse form a heartbreaking web of loyalty, guilt, and impossible choices. Miles's interactions with Gwen reveal a bond fractured by secrets. Gwen has been visiting Miles for months, lying to him about her missions, unable to tell him that the Spider Society considers him an anomaly. Their chemistry is electric, the rooftop conversations, the shared silences, but the film understands that love isn't enough when the multiverse is at stake. Gwen's relationship with her own father, Captain Stacy, really mirrors Miles's struggles. After she accidentally reveals her identity, her father blames Spider-Woman for the death of Peter Parker, who was her best friend, and tries to arrest her, which forces her to flee her dimension. Her arc, from being desperate for approval to accepting that she can't control how others see her, is honestly the film's emotional spine. Miguel O'Hara serves as the film's antagonist, but not its villain. His trauma, he accidentally destroyed an entire universe when he tried to replace his dead alternate self, has made him rigid, desperate, and convinced that canon events, like the deaths of police captains close to Spider people, just can't be changed. Oscar Isaac's voice performance is both terrifying and heartbreaking. Miguel isn't evil, he's a grieving father who has decided that, well, some pain is necessary. Supporting characters like Hobie Brown, the anarchist Spider-Punk, provide comic relief and a bit of moral clarity. I don't believe in consistency. Jessica Drew, the pregnant Spider-Woman, serves as Gwen's mentor and Miguel's enforcer. The relationship between Miles and his parents, especially his father Jeff and his mother Rio, grounds all the multiversal chaos in real, domestic intimacy. Jeff's speech about worrying every night that his son might be Spider-Man is honestly one of the film's most devastating moments. As the plot unfolds, Miles faces escalating challenges across dimensions that totally transform his understanding of heroism. One of the key events is the introduction of the Spider Society. Miguel, revealing this massive headquarters filled with literally hundreds of spider people, Lego Spider-Man, Spider-Cat, Spider-Rex, and even a cameo from Insomniac's PS4 Spider-Man, explains the multiverse's rules. The sequence is visually overwhelming, a real love letter to Spider-Man's 60-year history, but the emotional weight really lands when Miguel reveals that Miles was never supposed to be Spider-Man. The spider that bit him actually came from another dimension, Earth 42, and his existence is, well, an anomaly. "You're a mistake," Miguel tells him. Then, Key Event 2 delivers the film's most devastating sequence, the chase through the Spider Society. Miles, learning that his father is destined to die in 2 days as a canon event, refuses to accept it. Miguel and, like hundreds of spider people, pursue him across dimensions. The go-home machine, the collapsing reality, the moment where Miles, trapped, looks at Gwen and asks, "Do you trust me?" She hesitates. He escapes alone. The sequence is an action masterpiece, but honestly, its emotional brutality, Gwen's failure to choose Miles, is what destroys the audience. The filmmakers use pacing masterfully. Each dimension has its own animation style. Gwen's world is a watercolor painting, bleeding emotion across the frame. Miguel's Nueva York is cold, angular, architectural. Miles's Brooklyn is graffiti-tagged and textured. The score by Daniel Pemberton, electronic, orchestral, and utterly unique, pushes every scene to its emotional limit. The sequence where Miles, alone on a collapsing reality, watches his father's face superimposed over his own, is the film's thesis. He will not accept a world where love requires sacrifice. The turning point arrives when Miles escapes to Earth 42, only to discover that in this dimension, without Spider-Man, his uncle Aaron is still alive, his father is dead, and Miles himself has become the Prowler. The final shot of the film, Miles, tied to a punching bag, facing his dark reflection as the Prowler's theme swells, is a cliffhanger that hurts as much as it thrills. Across the Spider-Verse isn't just about spider people. It's a film that wrestles with determinism, parental expectation, and the radical belief that canon can be broken. One of the most prominent themes is the cruelty of destiny and the power of choice. Miguel's canon events, the deaths that make spider people who they are presented as immutable laws of the multiverse. But the film argues that accepting suffering as necessary is a form of cowardice. Miles refuses to accept that his father must die for the universe to function. The film asks, what kind of hero accepts tragedy as inevitable? Another theme, the weight of parental expectation and, the cost of hiding, emerges through Miles's relationship with his parents. He loves them, but he lies to them constantly, and that dishonesty is, honestly, corroding their bond. His father's speech, "I see this kid, Spider-Man, and I think that could be my son," is devastating because it's true. Jeff already knows on some level, but Miles can't say it. The film argues that love requires vulnerability, and that hiding yourself from the people who love you is its own kind of death. The film also explores found family versus biological family and the moments when they conflict. Gwen's arc is about learning that approval isn't the same as love. Her father eventually accepts her, but only after she stops begging for it. Miles's arc is about refusing to let anyone, not Miguel, not destiny, not the multiverse, tell him what he's allowed to save. Critics have noted the film's thematic density. As one wrote, Across the Spider-Verse is a film about grief, about the stories we tell ourselves to make tragedy bearable, and about the radical, terrifying act of believing that things could be different. It's a superhero film that's also a meditation on trauma, on legacy, and on the courage it takes to say no to fate. Some fascinating details behind Across the Spider-Verse make the experience even richer. The film's animation style is, unprecedented. Each dimension has its own visual language, with characters animated on twos, that's 12 frames per second, to mimic comic book motion while backgrounds move on ones, 24 frames per second, creating a sense of controlled chaos. The team developed entirely new rendering techniques for Gwen's watercolor world, which honestly just bleeds and blooms like wet paint across the screen. The voice cast recorded separately, but, the directors encouraged improvisation. Daniel Kaluuya's Hobie Brown was almost entirely improvised, with Kaluuya actually refusing to read the script, and instead just responding to scenes in character. Oscar Isaac recorded Miguel's lines while wearing motion capture, physically embodying the character's coiled rage. Fun bit of trivia for you, the Spider Society sequence actually features over 280 unique spider people. Yeah, that includes some pretty deep cuts like Spider-Man from the 1967 cartoon, the Japanese Spider-Man with his giant robot Leopardon, and even a live-action cameo from Donald Glover as the Prowler, reprising his deleted cameo from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Spot's design, by the way, went through a wild evolution, from being comic relief to this sort of existential horror. His final form, basically a being of pure void, actually needed brand new rendering techniques. And just so you know, the film's cliffhanger ending. That was planned from the very start, with Beyond the Spider-Verse always meant to be the conclusion. As the story reaches its absolutely devastating cliffhanger, Miles faces the choice that really defines him. Trapped in the Spider Society, he finds out his father is going to die in 2 days, and saving him would unravel reality itself. Miguel shows him proof, like actual universes where spider people saved their loved ones, and those universes just collapsed into nothing. The key moment comes when Miles refuses. He says, "I'ma do my own thing," which echoes his dad's words from the first film, but now, it's got the weight of the whole multiverse behind them. He escapes, just barely, and flees through a portal, but Miguel has already sabotaged the coordinates. The resolution here isn't really a resolution, it's more like a promise. Miles, tied to a punching bag, just watches as his alternate self, Miles G. Morales the Prowler, walks up to him. Then, the screen cuts to black. The filmmakers wanted these final moments to really stick with you. The story isn't over. This is just the second part of a 2-part epic, and Beyond the Spider-Verse will finish Miles's journey. But the cliffhanger works because it's earned. We've seen Miles grow, fight, and flat out refuse to live in a world where love costs lives. Now he's got to face himself. So, in conclusion, Spider-Man. Across the Spider-Verse is honestly a breathtaking, emotionally devastating masterpiece that kind of redefines what animation and superhero cinema can be. The visuals are just revolutionary, the voice cast is spot on, and the themes, destiny, family, the courage to say no, stick with you long after the credits roll. It's not a complete film, yeah, and that cliffhanger really hurts, and waiting for Beyond the Spider-Verse is just agonizing. But as a piece of storytelling, it's pretty much unparalleled. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a comment with your thoughts. What's your favorite dimension? And how are you coping with that cliffhanger? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more movie reviews, deep dives, and behind-the-scenes insights. Thanks for watching, and remember, anyone can wear the mask.